In a small picturesque village in Germany, at the foot of the majestic Alps, a family lived a seemingly peaceful life in a country house surrounded by green meadows and a crystal-clear lake, which was used for leisure during the summer. This charming place, known as Schwarzenbach, became a refuge for citizens seeking peace and quiet, but behind the facade of this idyllic setting, a disturbing relationship developed between two of its members, Mark and Anna. Mark, the eldest son, was 23 years old, a stocky man with an athletic build and dark brown hair that fell untidily over his forehead. His gaze, sometimes intense and penetrating, betrayed an emotional complexity that resonated with a combination of fondness and possessiveness. Despite his friendly appearance and charming smile, there was an air of uneasiness that accompanied him. Ever since they were children, he had shown extreme adoration for his younger sister, Anna, who was only 16. Anna was a cheerful, carefree teenager, with long blonde hair that fell in soft waves over her shoulders and radiant blue eyes that sparkled with the curiosity and impetuosity of youth. However, she was often uncomfortable with the attention her brother paid her. To all who knew them, the relationship between Mark and Anna had an unusual tint to it, something that, while not overtly disturbing, caused people in the town to raise their eyebrows. From a very young age, Mark had taken on the responsibility of caring for Anna. Childhood memories floated through his mind, like that day at the pool, when, after Anna had slightly slipped, he had jumped in to rescue her, holding her tightly as she laughed. However, as they grew older, that care changed from protective to possessive. Mark always made sure that Anna was never alone with other children. At family gatherings, he preferred to talk to her rather than include her in games with his other friends. As the days passed, this dynamic began to subtly shift. Mark would often watch Anna from a distance, especially when she was hanging out with friends in the garden. On one occasion, when she had her first kiss with a boy at a party, Mark was devastated and furious. That night, he told Anna that she deserved better and that he would always be there for her. Comments like this carried a weight that Anna couldn't quite grasp. Their mother, Ingrid, worked long hours as a nurse at the local hospital. She was a middle-aged woman with ash-blonde hair and green eyes that radiated a natural warmth, always trying to find time to listen and understand her children, but often exhausted by work. Her dedication to her profession kept her busy and distracted from the more disturbing dynamics taking place in her home. Their father, Klaus, was a burly, sturdy farmer, with a strong build and gray hair, who spent most of his time outdoors, tending to his land and livestock. He was a man of affable character and an easy smile, always trying to instill in his children the value of hard work and the importance of family. However, these traditional ideals also caused him to overlook the warning signs that were accumulating in the relationship between Mark and Anna. One day, during one of those dinners in the dining room, Ingrid noticed a disturbing comment. "Mark, why do you always sit next to Anna? There's room for all of us to be together." Mark's response was subtle, almost evasive. "I just like being near her, Mom." Months passed and things didn't seem to change. Days were filled with familiar routines, walks around the lake, and mutual support at school. Things began to change, however, when Anna began to show interest in activities outside her home. She joined a drama club and started hanging out with her friends more. Mark felt left out, and Anna's newfound independence sparked an increasingly pronounced anxiety in him. She noticed it. Some nights after rehearsals, she could feel his intense gaze on her. One spring afternoon, during a walk by the lake, Anna confided in her brother that she liked a boy at the club. Her face lit up as she talked about him. Mark, however, felt like his world was falling apart. That night, as they ate dinner, he couldn't stop thinking about how to keep Anna away from those he thought might harm her. Instead of showing her loving support, he began to become more controlling, structuring his schedule and suggestions little by little. On many occasions, her friends expressed concern about the closeness between the two. One of Anna's friends, Lisa, suggested that she talk to someone, that there might be something disturbing about the way her brother looked at her. Anna, although she understood the advice, avoided the idea. To her, Mark was just her brother, someone who had always been there for her, but she was beginning to feel a slight uneasiness. Another birthday party for Anna took place at home. While everyone was gathered and celebrating, Mark approached her and whispered in her ear that he would always protect her and that no one loved her like he did. That comment, although said with affection, sent a shiver down Anna's spine. However, the laughter of friends and the lively music at the celebration dispelled her uneasiness. As time went on, Mark's obsession became less innocent. Something in his gaze no longer seemed brotherly. There was a hidden intensity that made Anna uncomfortable. Her best friends began to notice a change. There were comments associated with her behavior that made her wonder if what she thought of as brotherly affection could be something more. Summer brought warmth and the opportunity to socialize more, but it also revealed the warped nature of Mark and Anna's relationship. One day, Mark approached her with a special gift, a necklace he had bought with his savings. "This is just for you, Anna," he told her, "so you'll always think of me when we're not together." She smiled, a little embarrassed, but she felt the weight of the jewelry on her neck as a symbol of something increasingly sick. As Mark and Anna's relationship grew more complex, Ingrid and Klaus remained immersed in the everyday. The parents were happy that their children were getting along. Unfortunately, the brightest lights in their lives cast shadows on their hearts. One autumn afternoon, after a walk through the village, Anna decided to attend a meeting of the drama club without telling Mark. When she returned, she found her brother waiting for her at the entrance of the house, his eyes dark and the atmosphere tense. "I've been looking for you," Mark murmured. "I didn't understand why you didn't tell me where you were going." Anna tried to reassure him, explaining that she needed space, but her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The first warning signs were already there, but it was difficult for everyone in the family to see the deep obsession that Mark felt for his sister. As if time were on an inexorable pause, life went on, until the moment when fate decided to show its darkest face. Mark and Anna were standing at a fragile point of no return, with tragedy lurking in the shadows. As the days ticked by in a relentless cadence of routine, Mark and Anna's relationship continued to take shape in an atmosphere that, at first glance, seemed normal but carried an increasingly disturbing undertone. The cold winter had settled in Schwarzenbach, covering the landscape with a blanket of snow that concealed the Mahler family secrets, and in the house, an atmosphere of growing tension filled the air. It was December 2023, and Christmas was approaching. The family was preparing for the celebrations, but the smiles that decorated their faces sometimes hid deeper worries. Mark, despite actively participating in family activities, lived in a parallel world where his obsession with Anna consumed him. The beginning of a new year felt distant while he simply tried to control every aspect of his sister's life, longing for the closeness that, in his eyes, was a unique and special bond. One evening, as usual, they gathered for dinner in the dining room. The table was decorated with candles and a centerpiece of pine cones and fir branches, but the atmosphere felt heavy. That evening, everyone was present. Besides the parents, Ingrid and Klaus, also Lucas, Anna's 12-year-old younger brother. The tense atmosphere became evident when, at the beginning of the dinner, Anna, wearing a new Christmas dress that accentuated her figure, dared to share her plans for the holidays. "Mom, Dad, I'm really excited about drama club this holiday. We're putting on a Shakespeare play. Could you come and see us? My friends and I have been working hard on this," she suggested enthusiastically, her eyes shining. Mark, who was sitting next to him, frowned. "Did you have to talk to those friends? Wouldn't you rather stay home with us? You could help me with the Christmas decorations," he interrupted immediately, his voice laden with a tension that left everyone at the table silent. Awkwardness filled the air as Lucas looked back and forth, not quite understanding the dynamic between his brother and sister. "Mark, that's not fair," Ingrid said, trying to ease the tension. "Anna has a right to enjoy herself with her friends. We need to support her." Klaus, who had been listening with concern, nodded, but his gaze was focused on Mark. He had overlooked so much up until that moment. However, Mark kept his gaze fixed on Anna, who felt caught between loyalty to her brother and her desire to be independent. Throughout the dinner, a pattern was noticed. Mark would prepare a special dish for her, ignoring what was left on Lucas's plate, as if he was determined to keep his sister on a pedestal, just for him. During conversations, Anna would try to explain her dreams, but Mark would constantly get in the way. An anecdote they had shared from their childhood, when Anna had fallen off her bike and Mark had run to help her, was brought up, but Mark turned the conversation to how she always depended on him. "You've always needed me, Anna. You don't understand me. I take care of you because I care about you," he would say, as if it were a justification for his actions. At first there was laughter, the soft sound of happiness and family bliss, but then it gradually dissipated as Mark's obsession enveloped the room like the winter cold. Ingrid felt chills as she witnessed this inevitable situation. It wasn't the first time she had noticed a lack of harmony. Everyone was uneasy, but the topic of Mark's apparent closeness to Anna was too pleasurable for him to simply ignore. That night after dinner, Anna went up to her room, feeling dizzy from the combination of emotions. She sat on her bed, staring at a poster of a play, wondering if she could ever really be free. Meanwhile,
Mark remained in the living room, reliving in his mind what he had heard.
He had a feeling of emptiness, of rejection. Anna's play meant that he would lose her somehow, that she would walk away. His mind took him down dark paths where he couldn't let that happen.
From this visit to the dining room onwards, the days became distorted images of what used to be family warmth.
Mark became increasingly intense in his control over Anna, monitoring her outings and interactions with friends.
His behavior began to escalate from subtle to blatant, becoming absolute control.
There were times when Mark would interrupt her conversations with friends, even going so far as to reprimand those who dared get too close to his sister. One day, while Anna was on her way to school, she ran into Frederick, a boy from her class who she had been attracted to for months. The conversation flowed naturally, and the boy invited her to a party. During a fragile conversation, Mark suddenly appeared, interrupting and making Anna uncomfortable. "She has to get home before it gets dark," he told Frederick, his voice almost angry. The boy frowned, but Anna stood frozen, sensing that Mark's words came from a place of possession, not love. There in the snow, in the morning cold, Anna felt a chill. It was a cruel reminder of the invisible chains that kept her bound to her brother. When Anna commented at home that she would rather stay at the drama club and rehearse, Mark unleashed his fury. "Can't you see that they don't really want you? They just want to use your talent and then they'll leave you behind," he exclaimed, his speech laced with fury. Ingrid, listening from the kitchen, couldn't help but feel that her son was crossing dangerous lines. But, as always, she thought it must be a phase. In her mind, there was more attention than love in what she was hearing. As tensions mounted, the path to tragedy began to take shape. The dinner in that dining room was not just a meal, but a battlefield in an emotional war, where confusion and love intertwined with obsession and fear. It was one night, when the last lights of the day began to flicker in the window, that Mark decided to take his behavior one step further.
In the middle of the night, when everyone was asleep, he entered Anna's room.
Stung by a mix of jealousy and desperation, Mark reaches out to her, seeking a balance between protection and possession. When Anna woke up, staring at him in fear, the thunder of her own pounding heart echoed in her ears. That intense gaze that had once made her feel special now filled her with dread. "I only want the best for you," Mark whispered, as if justifying his actions could change the climate of the terrifying current that flowed between them.
At that moment, Anna knew that the relationship had crossed a dangerous line from which there was no escape. The weeks that followed seemed endless as tensions mounted in the Mahler household. As Christmas approached, the atmosphere in the house became stifling. Anna struggled against her brother Mark's growing control. Every day, he became more obsessed with protecting her, convinced that any external threat had to be eliminated. Their brotherly love, which had once given her comfort, had turned into a suffocating bond. Deep in her heart, Anna longed to be free, to experience life for herself, but she didn't know how to deal with Mark's growing restlessness. Every time she tried to talk to friends or go out, he would watch her, his eyes full of distrust. Mark's smile, which had once reassured her, had become a reminder of an increasingly possessive love. Finally, the night of the Christmas party arrived, a time that should have been one of family joy. The house was decorated with bright lights and festive decorations. The aroma of freshly baked cookies filled the air. However, happiness seemed like a cold mask, only hiding the true uneasiness that dwelled in the hearts of each member of the family. Ingrid and Klaus tried to maintain the appearance of family unity, while Lucas played happily, oblivious to the tension growing between his siblings. Anna, excited about the party, tried to help with the preparations. But every time she approached the arriving friends, she felt Mark's intense gaze on her, grave and penetrating. "Anna," he would say, "make sure you stay away from those boys. They're not like us." His tone was soft but carried a crushing authority. The words echoed in her mind, wearing away any glimmer of joy. At dinner, the conversation revolved around happy anecdotes, but the laughter rang hollow in Anna's ears. Once again, Mark interrupted her attempts to share what she was passionate about. "You shouldn't go out so much. You're wasting your time with these ridiculous rehearsals." "In the end, no one will remember you," he said, his voice sharp as a knife. Tears welled up in Anna's eyes, but she held them back, feeling like she was short of breath. In her mind, she clung to the hope that, one day, things would go back to the way they were, but as she looked at Mark, she realized that she would never be able to overcome this growing abyss. Dinner ended, but the uneasiness lingered in the air. That night, when everyone went to sleep,
Anna knew something dark was brewing. As the family drifted off to sleep, Mark lay awake, caught in a storm of thoughts. The more he thought about the possible loss of his sister, the more intense his desire to control her became. He had come to the conclusion that in order to ensure her happiness, he had to make sure she never left his side. Possession clouded his sense of reality, driving him to act in ways he didn't fully understand. Just as the moonlight dimly illuminated Anna's room, he crept in, feeling overcome by a mixture of jealousy and despair. Anna, sensing her brother's presence, woke up and was filled with an uneasy mix of fear and confusion. "Mark, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a shaky whisper. "I just want to make sure you're okay," he replied, his eyes filled with distorted love. "You can't leave me, Anna. No one else loves you like I do." The words echoed in the heavy air, turning brotherly love into an unbearable burden. "Why are you talking like that?" "Mark, this isn't normal," Anna said, feeling desperation starting to take hold. Confusion enveloped her like an impenetrable fog. At that moment, Mark took a step closer, trapping Anna in a vulnerable position. The atmosphere became more tense, and panic began to take its toll on Anna. "You have to let me go. I just want to be happy and do what I love," she exclaimed, trying to release her feelings. However, instead of encouraging, Mark was firmer. "You don't understand. You can't leave. I protect you because I love you. I won't let anyone hurt you," he said, with a fervor that now sounded threatening. Anna felt the air escape from her lungs. What was meant to be protection was quickly turning into a threat. With a burst of strength, Anna tried to get out of bed, sensing that the situation was becoming dangerous. But Mark, caught in the spiral of his own thoughts, held her back. In a moment of desperation, the fight between them broke out. Fear turned into unbridled panic. While Mark tried to hold on to her, Anna, desperate, struggled to free herself. "Calm down," she screamed, but her cry was lost in the silence of the night. That's when the unthinkable happened. Amidst the whirlwind of emotions and despair, the conflict took an unexpected and violent turn. The hand that had wanted to protect her became a deadly threat. In a moment, Mark's mind clouded over and the line between love and madness blurred irreparably, making it clear that his actions had crossed a threshold that could never be turned back. The silent rumble of what had happened in that room echoed in their hearts. As the chaos cleared and reality was laid bare, Mark realized the magnitude of what he had done. Anna lay on the floor, the coldness of abandonment replacing the warmth he had longed for. Her once vibrant eyes were now in a distant space, possibly beyond this world. Mark, paralyzed by guilt and the horrific realization of his action, sat on the floor, his mind filled with traumatic images. He had never wanted to hurt her. The fog of obsession was clearing, as he faced the devastating truth. He had destroyed the thing she loved most. The night had changed, transforming his love into horror. The next morning, the people of Schwarzenbach awoke to the dim light of dawn, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded at the Mahler house. Snow glistened in the sunlight, covering the doorway of the home where unthinkable acts had been committed. The family continued with their routine, unaware of what awaited them. When Klaus and Ingrid realized something was wrong, they found Anna's bedroom door ajar. A heart-wrenching scream echoed in the cold light of day, as horror gripped their hearts. The Christmas lights glowed outside, while true darkness took hold in their home. Police officers arrived quickly, and chaos broke out in the house where brotherly love had turned into irreparable tragedy. Mark, when confronted, was in a state of confusion and remorse, unable to accept the magnitude of his actions. The community, upon learning of the horror that had unfolded, was devastated. Murmurs of contempt, sadness and bewilderment swept through Schwarzenbach as the Mahler family story became a warning, a tragic lesson in the dangers of obsession. The days that followed were filled with grief. The family was swept up in a storm of trials and condemnations. The divided community wondered how such a strong love could have led to such a devastating outcome. For Mark, the greatest punishment was not the legal consequences that would come, but the irreversible loss of his beloved sister. Guilt consumed him, like a shadow he could never leave behind. The home that had once been warm and welcoming was transformed into a somber reminder, shrouded in silence and mourning. The carolers that once brightened the cold winter no longer had their place on the family doorstep. The festive season had been ruined forever, scarring everyone who knew the family, leaving deep scars that time could not erase. Thus, the once close-knit Mahler family became a tale of tragedy and caution, personifying the shadows that lurk when love turns into possession. As the world moved on, the lesson that had been learned would linger in the air, a distant echo of what we should never allow to happen.